So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:10. And first on the agenda is to review and act to approve the minutes from December 12th. Any corrections?
There was just number 3 was, I couldn't quite figure out. I think there was some information missing. It's not a big deal. And it says meeting will be held on the business office, probably because meeting was held. It's minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. So those are just little corrections, yeah. I think that we
El-
just probably, that one motion probably,
Okay.
the names didn't get recorded.
Okay.
Yes, clearly, pieces there.
Yeah.
Are you doing the minutes, Ellen?
No, I am.
Oh, you are? Oh, thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
I just realized I didn't check that out before we started. Okay.
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And next is to review and act upon the approved monthly director's report. Motion to approve?
I just had one question.
Oh, okay.
Under policy, Ellen,
Yes,
is it a team walk group or work group?
work group. Does he have walk group? Yes, that should be.
That'll
not
be
a
right
walk-
up
a
their
walk
alley,
group.
though, then.
Yes, right. Work.
Oh,
We could
okay.
add that R. Thank you.
Sorry.
That drives me
that's good.
crazy when spell check doesn't pick it up because you spelled the right way, but not the right word.
Right.
Thank you.
Motion to approve?
So moved.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Financial and legislative, Ellen,
Okay.
first on the agenda is to review and act upon the FY18 budget.
The year-to-date
Yeah,
report
year-to-date.
is in your packets.
Yeah.
One of the differences in this schedule, or in this report rather, is the transfer of all of the salary adjustments, which is under the second column. Actually, I think we did it last month. I think it was already there last month. So all of the percentage used amounts at the end look much better than they did prior to the transfer adjustment for the salary increases. So we are on target. There's nothing here that I'm concerned about at this point.
That's encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Certainly
Yes.
is.
Good planning. Congratulations.
A lot of good luck on that first year.
The governor's report said they were giving, I just read a quick resume, said he's giving more money back to the,
Local
Local
aid or
aid.
something. I haven't had a chance to
I
see what he's
just quickly
planning
saw
to do in
something, he's
his
speaking tonight.
right state of the drift.
Said something
State of
about
the
giving more money back.
Oh, that's a good news.
Yeah, it's good news.
Okay. And the FY 2019 budget development?
Right, so we, back in early December, Joan and Priya Rathnam and I met with the town manager to review the budget request. We had a good hearing. I think he gave us at
He gave
least
us
an
quite-
hour's
more
worth
than
of
that.
time, more than that. Gave careful review to the budget request, asked a lot of good questions. He will be releasing his recommendations on the various department budgets. All of them will be released by February 7th.
Oh, good.
So we'll have some information, obviously, before we go to the Finance Committee meetings, hearings, which are scheduled for March, 2 Saturdays in March instead of in February, as they were traditionally before. We have just had the schedule for those hearings released, and our hearing is scheduled for Saturday, March 3rd at 1:15 p.m. And I know, Joan, you're going to be away, and
I'm away,
I'll
yeah.
confirm with Claire that she will be there, but anyone else who can attend from the board, that's definitely
What
welcome.
time are we in the afternoon?
1:15,
After
our
the
normal
housing,
time.
after the housing.
Actually, it's a little bit switched up, where after the building inspector.
Oh, okay.
So far, this is still draft, but we've confirmed our appointment.
What day was that again, please?
Saturday, March 3rd.
Okay.
That's all I have to update on budget.
Okay, thank you.
Um,
And then the state certification, and first state grant award.
So each year we go through a reporting process to the state related to our state certification. We submitted the 3 reports required for that, and we've
It's
just.
rather extensive, too.
It is rather expensive, yes. And we've received notice, this time of year is when we receive notice of our certification and our first grant payment of our award. So we are certified for this year, and we have been notified that our first grant payment for fiscal year 18 is $23,659.93. They always release the grant payments in two actions. One typically comes in December, and then closer to the end of the fiscal year, typically in May, they release whatever final funds they have. They wait on that second release because some communities go through an appeal process on their certification, and if they don't succeed, then obviously that money gets spread between those who do become certified. So they always wait on that last payment, but you can estimate that our final grant payment will be somewhere in the range of probably $42,000.
Can you give me that number again?
Yes, in fact, what I'm gonna do is pass you a copy of the letter, so you don't even have to, could you pass that over to Claire? That would be great.
Thank you.
And when do you receive that?
We received that December 13th.
Oh, you did.
Oh, when do we receive the money?
Yeah.
It will be going into the treasurer's office probably within a week, or it says in the next few weeks.
Oh, okay.
So they will be getting that first payment. And this is an annual payment, so they're very familiar with the state certification grants that come through.
Okay. Great. Okay, and then the fourth quarter trust report.
And I did print out copies of these because they are large format, and I know some people prefer to have that in this format. There you go. Take off the glasses. So, per the decision of this board a couple of months ago, maybe about 6 months ago, we are looking at the net income column as a reflection of kind of the capacity for the board to use for different purposes next year. So this is 1 quarter's interest at $2,400.77. So that is trending towards giving us about $10,000 for the year, which is kind of what we had projected. So it is the 1, 2, 3, 4th column over net income.
Is that separated into separate items that we have to spend it on?
Yes, each account has a
Is it-
designated purpose. The
Okay.
majority, Fran, are materials, designated
That's what I
to
thought.
materials. And the largest of those is the first one, the Bogarty
Of course.
Fund, right. And I think typically it comes out to about 93% of the funds are dedicated to materials. There's very few general purpose funds.
Is that set up when the trust is created?
Yes. Typically by the donor. You know, that Mr. Bogarty went and modified his trust at one point to include not only books, which was what his original trust said, but to any kind of library material to kind of accommodate the changes that were going on at that time.
A little bit off the subject, but the fact that the town has leftover money from the one school is coming back to pay off some of the
Library.
library.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
that, right, it's not so much the money is, money is being paid from one account to the other, it's more that the borrowing capacity that they
Right.
had for the Sherwood School, that some of that borrowing capacity at a lower rate is being used to pay off the short-term bonds for the library project. So that saves the town money on
Well, that's good.
the interest rates, right, that was approved at the last town
I
meeting.
think that came in under budget again.
That's right.
And ahead of time, the
Right.
same as this. We've been lucky.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Ellen, we have that other one on the second page, the Shrewsbury Library Memorial Trust. Could you just refresh my mind and know how we use that?
That trust actually can be used a general purpose.
Okay, it's a more
Yeah, that
flexible
is much
fund,
more
right?
flexible.
Okay.
Yep. So that's, so the market value on that is $28,000. It was $16,000 beginning principal and interest on on it was $122 this quarter.
And we don't really have a policy on that one, we just use as
There
needed?
is a
or-
policy.
oh, okay.
Yeah, but I can bring a copy of that or send a copy to the trustees again. There was a trust language actually created to establish that. So it does describe very flexible
How
use.
we use it.
Yep,
okay, yeah.
I'll send you a copy of that.
When was that established, do you know?
I'd have to
A
go
long
back and
time
look at the
ago?
date. I wanna say the 60s, maybe, not terribly long. Some of these funds date back
Yeah.
to the 1800s.
Yeah.
So somewhere in the 1900s.
Just out of curiosity, I've never
Yeah.
really thought about it till Claire asked the question.
Well, I knew that was put together, it was a newer fund, and it
Yeah.
was actually
Right.
give some more flexibility, that's
Yes.
why.
Yeah.
It's transfer of principal.
What was that?
Where did-
Well, the one we wanna look at is net
Yeah,
income.
yes, but
Yeah.
I'm looking
Oh.
down here, transfer of principal to $63 from the Memorial Trust Fund. Where did you put it? Where did it come from? I'm seeing all these zeros, and I saw the 63, no, it is.
I would have to find out, Fran,
Does it,
what that,
okay.
yeah,
Inconsequential, I
Yeah.
just noticed it and wondered.
it's
put
related
it
to, I think
somewhere.
it's related to, I'd have to go back, but,
Don't waste your time, it's all right.
no, it has something to do with the 10%
Oh,
of
yeah,
the trust
that's-
funds that are
that-
being transferred back into principal,
That-
but I just
That
don't
must be one of
know.
George Strom's thing?
Yeah,
I bet
and,
that's what it
yep,
could be.
yeah, but
Okay.
I just don't know which, I'd have to go back and look at which accounts qualify under that.
You've got other things,
Yeah.
that's not that important, I'm just curious.
I was hoping it would show up on the first page showing which ones are actually doing that, but.
And there's some, yes, Alden Stones
Six.
did something too,
Yeah.
Just interesting.
466,
A penny saved is, well,
yeah. And I reviewed this, all of these accounts with the Bartholomew, the consultant from Bartholomew, the town's advisor on the trust funds. I kept notes on the meaning of each column because some of them are not too intuitive. And that one, I believe it has something to do with the 10% being put back into it, Fran, but I'd
that's
have to
because
find
I
out.
look at the others and the
That
only
makes sense
ones that
because
have
we
gone
talked,
are
I
the,
think once when they came and spoke to us, they mentioned that
Mhm.
there was a thing where 10% would go back.
Yeah, only some of them,
On some
those
of
that
them.
that the trustees were able to have those trusts modified. Many were
Guy
not able to because, you know, they
Bogatti
didn't
and
have,
Alden Stone, yep.
they didn't have, they didn't have access to people who could help change the
Right.
original language of those
Oh,
trusts. No family
that's right.
members, no, living
Mhm.
donors. So they only could do the ones that they had access to, be able to get the support of the donors. Otherwise, they would have gone to court on all of them and tried
Now,
to change
I'm
that
looking,
trust.
just out of curiosity, some of the funds who have small amounts in them, they just keep going until?
Right, unless we spend, like, the child's fund might be
Yeah.
good at, the leader fund, we
Yeah.
have, a very small amount.
Right.
If we wanted to spend the interest, you could, but at some point it becomes,
I mean, yeah.
Like, for instance,
So it
the
just
leader
kinda
fund
stays.
is dedicated to children's programming. That's the
Okay.
one that's a little different, but.
So you probably wouldn't touch that till it grows a little bit
Right.
more.
Right,
It has a ways to
Yeah.
go.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you had something that wasn't too expensive,
right.
yeah, it'll take a while. But if anybody's looking to contribute to the library trust funds, and I'd like to know which fund could benefit from
Yeah.
a contribution,
Yeah.
it would be worth letting them, especially if it's something to do with children, be a worthwhile thing to consider. Okay, personnel update on the hiring process for the interlibrary loan circulation assistant.
So all of you know that Deb Alger retired this past week? Yes, this past week. And we had started the hiring process slightly before she left, and we had 4 internal candidates. We had one of the hardest decisions we have made in a long time. We had an incredibly
Especially.
strong group of candidates. And we hired Shi-Wen Chen, who is now going to serve as our interlibrary loan librarian and full-time circulation assistant. We think that she'll bring a lot of enthusiasm and concern about the community. That was something that really kind of came through in her interview process, so.
She
we're
does
really
have
pleased.
enthusiasm.
Yes, she certainly does. So she will be, she actually has already started this week, so she is,
Could you repeat
sure,
her
it's
name?
S-H-I, and then capital W-E-N, Shi-Wen, and the last name is spelled Chen, C-H-E-N.
Thank you.
Great.
So we congratulate her, and we're pleased that she is there.
And then you'll have to fill her position.
That's right, right, we're going to start the hiring
Your
process on that.
former position, right?
Yes, and
Okay.
that's a part-time position.
Okay. And we're going to hold off on the strategic plan until further, till
Right,
later
we
in the
could,
meeting.
so we'll do the presentation.
Review and act upon heat loss in the 1903 building. Oh, when I saw that, I thought, oh, no.
Well, there's nothing to act upon right now, but just in case something came up. So we had the heat go out during that very cold period where we had the freezing temperatures. We had a unit that went into defrost mode and then ended up freezing up on the roof. We had to have the repair service in, and they had to replace the motherboard to the computer that was ruined during the process. Replacement of that part took a bit to come in. Once they got that going, when they brought up the system again, one of the fans was down. So that kept the system from functioning. The systems are much more complex than they ever were before. So any little piece that's off, they can't just override it to keep it going. So we were without heat for about 3 weeks as we got all the parts. And what we were doing, thank you to the Public Buildings Department, they were setting up fans each night to blow hot air from this new part of the building into the old part of the building, to keep the building protected, keep pipes protected. And people really had some uncomfortable times in that 1903 building for a few weeks. So we're really grateful it's fixed. So now we need to look at why that happened. The repair person that was out is trying to figure that out and see if we can avoid that in the future.
Are they on a routine check?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's an exceptionally cold staff.
It
really
was, but we have them in New England, so.
Yes, we do.
So you have to figure that one out. So Public Buildings is working on that, and again, thank you to them for
Well,
trying to
luckily
get
there
us up
wasn't
as
any
quickly as
damage
possible. Yeah,
to the building.
right. At that same period, there were reports in the news of other libraries with frozen pipes. Some sad news out there, so
Yeah.
we're watching it closely.
Have changed a little since 1903.
Yes.
Yeah, one of the libraries was flooded.
That's right, major
Yeah,
floods
wow.
over their historical collection. But also I should put in a thank you to our custodian, Christy Baldino, who was here every night setting up the fans and checking on the building and caring for the building.
That's
So,
great. Thank you for her efforts.
mhm.
Okay, we want to review and act upon the tabletop game policy update.
So this is very minor change, and this is just to change the loan period to 3 weeks from 1 week, and to increase the amount of games that someone can check out at one time. Our collection is large enough to accommodate the longer loan period and the higher limit.
So we need a motion to agree to the changes, correct?
Yes, please.
So moved.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Ellen, do you use some of those games on Friday afternoons?
Do we, yes, that's what we use for the team gaming, right? Joan had the opportunity to stop in for Friday afternoon to see our memory cafe.
Yes.
And to see our teen activities. Actually, it was a very quiet day for teens. She didn't really
I
get to
know.
see much.
There wasn't much
um,
happening.
But you did get to see the gaming.
Oh,
We
yeah.
set up the games in the.
That was the only noise.
Right,
and
in
it was
that,
just-
in the team, in the alternate side of the meeting room and.
And I mean, it was just normal noise from,
Yes.
Kids playing
Right.
gaming. But I do want to say the Memory Cafe, if you haven't come to see it, it's just amazing to see what they do and, to see these people engaged. And the entertainment was wonderful.
Yeah.
It was
Where do they?
right here.
Here,
Yeah, on
actually,
this-
we try to be
okay.
either in this fuller size of the meeting room or the whole meeting room, depending on.
And one of
what
the
other
gentlemen,
schedule.
when I walked in, made sure I had coffee, made sure I had cookies.
It's one of our attendees of the Memory Cafe. He's just such a gracious man. He's
Yeah.
so welcoming to others.
And then there's
Yeah.
another couple who don't have memory issues, but love the idea of it. So they come every week and help to volunteer and support it. But the entertainment was remarkable. It was 2 special needs young men from, was it
Berkshire Music
Academy? And the one young fellow, red hair, curly red hair, he had a great personality.
Yes.
And, he was singing all these songs, and
Yeah.
when it was all over, he came around and shook everybody's hand.
Yeah.
Does he have Williams syndrome? That's actually very characteristic of it.
Is it
There's
really?
Yeah, there's a genetic deletion called Williams syndrome, and they're very gifted musically and very friendly and outgoing.
Yes.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
I wonder.
I
He
don't
was-
know.
It is a developmental disability. I mean,
Yeah.
I happen to know a
Yeah.
little bit about it from some
He
classes
was-
I've taught, but that's, they call it the joy gene,
Well, he was joyful, and
He was.
Yes.
his
Yeah.
colleague was a young man with autism, but profound autism, and he was also blind. And he was the pianist, and he was remarkable, remarkable, well, the 2 of them. And it was just a really kind of nice engagement between our participants and the performers. It just happened to be one of those moments you.
Yeah.
Oh, he was
that's pretty
great. He turned to the pianist and said, "Are you ready? Let's go," and
Yeah,
he was
all from
just-
memory.
but it was just nice to see what, and I
Yeah.
think you're doing a great job in
Well, thank
providing
you.
that service.
I should mention that one of the couples who came, this was their
Once you get
first
a tickle,
time,
it won't go
and they
away.
did not understand that it was not just, they thought it was only for people with Alzheimer's. And this person suffers from another issue, another health issue, which has some dementia issues related to it. And so his wife was really happy to find out that it was for anyone. So I think that this is a good opportunity for us to remind
Yeah.
people that it's not just for people with Alzheimer's. It can be for any kind of brain injury, anything like that. Just that it's a welcoming spot that people will understand if you
Does
have
the
any
attendance
brain
vary
issues.
quite a bit, or
It
is
does.
it fairly stable?
It's very, well, I mean, we have a steady group of 4 to 6, but then sometimes we get a bigger number. The day after the big storm, we had 1 person. But that was not
Yeah,
surprising
it's-
after
yeah,
that
it's
storm. But,
understandable.
it's getting steadier in terms of numbers. So that's something Priya Ratnam and I are focusing on now, kind of promotions. Now that we have a good, strong coordinator, and Christina Zarobi, who's our coordinator, paid through the grant program, so that's the focus.
Do you have a regular meeting day, like the first Tuesday at
Yes,
2
thank you.
o'clock, that
Yes.
kind of thing?
It's the
Yeah.
1st and 3rd Friday of every month at 2 o'clock, and it runs 2 to 4. And we always have some kind of activity, whether that's music or an art program. Sometimes we've had therapy dogs visit, things like that, a little bit of entertainment, but that's only for about an hour. The beginning and end are about the social time for people, really to support each other. The caregivers gain a great deal out of this as well.
And Christine said when she was talking to me that often a couple will come in and you can see that they're tense or agitated. And when they leave at the end of the 2 hours, they're very relaxed and,
Very calm.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
great.
nice. It's
Yeah,
a
it's great.
chance for,
I would think attendance would improve as the weather gets better.
Yes, when we started out, in the fall, it's good, we found that, the winter
Yeah.
is a hard time for a lot of people to get out.
well, I'm coming back when it gets to be warmer and more kids show up. But it was funny because one of the gentlemen here waved to, I always knew when some children were going by because he'd wave to them.
Right, the windows,
The
shades are
windows, they go-
open, and
Oh,
he
yeah.
enjoys seeing the teenagers come by.
Uh-huh.
Which is not a mix of population you would think would work all the time, but it's been working okay.
Well, as it gets more well-known, I think we'll probably have
Yeah,
a few more people enjoying
but
it.
it's a great opportunity.
Terrific program.
Oh, yeah,
We're
it is.
really proud of it.
Yeah, you should be.
Okay.
Okay, this group study room policy, you
So
have to
this
look at
is,
that.
there are very minor changes. So you'll see on the front that we're just specifying that this is a C.W. Myers Consortium library card, not a Shrewsbury card, just to specify that. And we added that no food is allowed in the group study rooms because we didn't have it there. It was assumed as part of the general acceptable behavior policy in the whole library, but we needed to make it clear because we had people questioning that.
Well, I had a question about that, because I looked at it, and you allow beverages, and I would say beverages are foods.
Right,
Maybe the salad?
Yeah, so we say beverages, covered beverages, but not food. food.
They're
It
foods,
doesn't
they're
say covered.
foods.
I wouldn't
No.
ask that.
Oh, yeah, because
Right.
it does say it outside.
Yeah, it does say it outside. We could probably, if we could get an amendment to say
Sure.
covered beverages, because
Covered-
that's what it says in the,
In the rooms?
in the actual policy for
Oh.
acceptable use of the whole building.
And there's a note outside if you get caught.
Right.
It tells you have to have it covered. So can I have a motion to approve with the amended word covered?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, so moved. Okay.
Thank you.
Then the exam proctoring update.
And this is also just a minor change. We're deleting the fact of providing postage. Instead, we're asking that all costs, that we'd be looking at all printing, copying, and mailing costs be paid by the student. Because we get, we have high, excuse me, I'm getting higher copying costs than sometimes that we've had. Sometimes things come through that we have to make a copy ourselves to
Oh,
keep a
okay.
copy on file, and sometimes these are pretty lengthy exams. A lot of them are online, but still some are papers
Now-
that come through.
What type of exams?
Mainly adult learners, it could be any
Oh, okay.
kind of
Oh,
exams.
right.
We have a lot of kind of certification exams, somebody doing a certification test. We also have some college courses that people are doing remotely, and they have to have a proctored exam, so.
Is this a popular service? Do we-
It's, this year was a little lower than last year. Even at the temporary site, I think we had 40-something. This year we only had 17, which is, I'm not sure why, but
Ellen,
it's, people ask.
What's the expectation of proctoring? What?
So we are very clear when we speak to the institution that we do not have a staff member sitting next to that person. What we do is we put them in a public place, and we have staff walking around. The person who's responsible predominantly, that would be Priya Ratnam. She does it as part of her work. She will be checking in on the student, that kind of thing. They check the ID at the start, check that they don't have materials with them that they're not supposed to, that kind of thing. But we're
No
not
one's
sitting
standing
next to the
there,
student,
yeah.
right? And we're very clear to the institution that that's the kind of proctoring we offer. And so there have been some institutions that it hasn't,
They won't
we
allow
haven't
it.
been able to meet their proctoring guidelines.
It's kind of a low stakes kind of situation there where you're
Exactly.
willing to proctor
Yeah.
for, so.
Right.
Yeah, I know, as we go to online learning, there's actually software called Proctorio that you have to use for just computer exams, and you've got cameras watching you and seeing
What
how
you-
often you disappear from view and all kinds, it's very sophisticated.
Wow,
Wow.
amazing.
Well, with the online, that's how do you prevent somebody with,
Right,
having a source right there on the desk, or
right,
they got their phone, or,
right. Right.
So we don't reserve a group study room for these
If
individuals?
we don't reserve them, but if we have something open that, at that moment when we reserve a time for this proctoring, but we don't tend to reserve a group study room, we just have them come in, if it's available, we'll usually put them in there just to,
Okay,
you
yeah.
know, so they're kind of confined.
That gives them an advantage, I would think.
Yeah, but some people do take it right out in the public areas, up on the top floor. It's a little quieter
Yeah, a
than
little
down here.
quieter, right, right.
Okay, do we motion to approve the change in policy?
So moved.
All in favor? Oh,
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And then the next one we need to look at is the Teen Child Safety Work Group.
Recommendation. So this is not a policy at this stage.
Right.
This is a set of recommendations that came out of a group of meetings I had with people I had asked to join me to discuss some of the challenges we were having around the large groups of teens, and also some of the policy conflicts we had in place, specifically in our child safety policy. We had some things that said, for instance, children 13 years or younger will not be left on the library property unattended after hours, when many 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds come to the building independently through, they're walking from the middle school, and there might be 20, 30 kids at closing waiting for parents to come, or walking off to meet someone down at Dunkin' Donuts or something. So that sense of control and sense of supervision was not something that was realistic in terms of parents' expectations about sending their children to the library independently. And as you know, we were also having challenges related to noise and control and kind of general behavior issues that we had worked through on a number of ways. You might recall some of the things we had done were to bring in, at first they were teen volunteers, high schoolers, to help us man those rooms. That turned into that there are paid page positions, so to speak, that through funding from the trustees through the library state aid account. We also started a sign-in to the teen room on those really heavy demand times of early release days and Friday afternoons, things like that. We started up the gaming opportunities on Friday afternoons that Joan referred to. And we have another thing that we had done this school year alone was we really focused on asking kids to choose a place to be and not to be moving back and forth between different areas of the building, which seemed to create the most disruption, the running around, the noise, that kind of thing. So we have set up designated spots for different kinds of activities. So for social activities, the teen room, for group study or quiet study, the children's program room, and the gaming. And we've also started really tamping down the congregating in the community commons because the noise level spreads throughout the building, and it was also discouraging others, adults, from using that space. So we ask, if you're done with your snack after school, move into one of the spaces, and that seemed to help a bit. But we still needed some advice about policy and kind of general communications. So you see it, the group that met consisted of a representative from the schools, a representative from the Regional Board of Health, a couple parents, one was a member of our trustee board, Lisa Powers, all of my youth services staff, to look at some of the policy and kind of procedure issues. And so the set of recommendations that you have before you address a couple different things. The first was staffing, which is something we've recognized, that we need to address staffing and the coverage of these areas during those high demand times. And as you know, we put in a budget request for this coming fiscal year for that full-time youth services librarian. So this goal would be supported by that request if that were to be funded. And our idea on that position, just to remind you, was to have half-time in the mornings in the children's department and in the afternoons in the teen department, because we've had a long-time request for children's services to a part-time position. So that was kind of a combined approach. And then one of the things that came up is that we need to look at this partly as a communication issue. What we heard from, especially from the parents who were involved in the work group, is that parents tend to view the library as that safe place that kind of kids can test as a rite of passage. The safe place to walk would be to the library. And so we really felt that we need to give parents a kind of a realistic view of what a public library is like today, in terms of the volume of people that might come through the building in a single day, that 1,200 people a day.
And the nature of those people.
And the nature of those, right, and that people come from all over central Massachusetts to use libraries. Lots of library shoppers out there. And then one of the things that we encountered in terms of a misperception is the idea that people somehow sign in when they come to the library. That's by law, anyone can enter a public library building without any kind of sign-in, without having a library card. Every free public library in the state is open to all, unless there is some kind of incident that bars them from entry for a temporary basis or a permanent basis.
This sign-in procedure that we use for the young adult room is just for those individuals.
Is just for that space, right? We also felt that we needed to clarify in terms of communicating to parents is that minimal monitoring takes place in the library, that we do not act in loco parentis as librarians, that when parents choose to send their children to the library, that they are doing so understanding that it is without supervision, that the children come into the building.
I think you got a phone call one day asking if their daughter, whatever her name was available or something.
Right. We will often have parents ask, can you go get, Susan Smith?
Really?
And we say, we may not know who Susan Smith is directly. One of the challenges we have is students don't have IDs at this age. They only have student IDs at high school. They may not have a library card. So the other thing that we felt was important to express to parents is that there might be up to 130 teens at one time. And those age groups might go from a fifth grader who could be 10 years old to a high schooler who could be 18 years old. And they could be interacting not only with each other, but with others, others in the building, adults and seniors and all.
You can't be responsible for that kind of interaction either.
That's right. The other thing that we felt was really important about communications was to make people aware that the library closes earlier on Friday nights at 5 o'clock, and that there is no one on the site after closing, so that they need to understand that that's the case. And that sometimes, this is kind of a more unique situation, but when the library closes for a storm or something like that, there may not be an awful lot of advance time to get that notification out there. So the first part of that communication issue was, to help people understand the library of today may not be what people remember from their childhood library. And also, the other aspect of it is that we need to use a variety of tools to reach out to parents. So one of the things that we had done last year was send them a letter to parents through the through the middle school principals, but the recommendation is that we ask the principals to actually send it themselves, that instead of just an attachment, that it go out from the principals if they're willing. So, other kinds of recommendations they get is, that we use the forums that parents are typically using, whether that's, a Facebook or Twitter or whatever social media forum would work. And there was an emphasis on asking the superintendent to include updates, kind of periodic updates in his community updates. The big question that started all this was the idea of the age that we say children can be left alone. So in the policy, we say that children in grades 5 through 8 may be left unattended for a maximum of 2 hours. And we went back and forth on this a great deal, and the recommendation that came out of the committee was the idea that 5th grade might just be too young to be alone in the library, and that it might be better to raise it to 6th grade. That presented a challenge. It presents a couple challenges. One, that is the norm is that lots of 5th graders are coming, and how do you really change that norm? And then the second is that because middle school students have no ID, differentiating between a 5th and a 6th grader becomes a big challenge. I know that there was kind of the feeling on the part of my young adult librarian it would be better to limit it to high school and not to ask that 5th and 6th graders not come alone, that only begin at 7th. But I think that would be a much harder kind of implementation, and I don't know that that's realistic.
It'd be hard to separate 5th and 6th because they're at the same school.
Exactly, that's exactly what he was saying.
Buildings you're dealing with, yeah.
Right, that's exactly what he was saying. But in any case, we don't have any student IDs, so we can't really say what grade they are in. When we ask, we get lots of different answers depending on what they want to do. So the other piece of policy is that one of the strong recommendations came as that at the end of the child safety policy, we have a whole procedure about what happens after closing time and children who are left thereafter. And the recommendation was to remove all of that procedure from the policy. That should not be something that is, what they felt is we are assuming liability that does not need to be assumed
That's a good point.
by having that in there. And just state that the library assumes no responsibility for children left after hours. That's a hard one. So I am not here tonight with a policy recommendation on this. I think that it would be better to have the full board and discuss, especially have Lisa back as part of the team who served on that work group. And you can see a couple other ideas down there. But I think that the big questions are we need to look at what would be the best minimum age level, or other ways we kind of address that.
Well, one of the things that came to mind when we were talking earlier is to see if Sherwood sends out some kind of a packet to the new parents coming in, and the library have a piece of information for parents.
Yeah.
Because they're hearing it from either their siblings or other kids, whereas instead if there's something that comes from the library stating, as 5th graders, if a 5th grader comes to the library, do you realize X, Y, Z? Parents may not be, at least it's educating parents.
Right.
And I would assume they get some kind of packet or orientation.
I will find out. I'm assuming as well. I don't know, but I will find out about that. Just as an aside, in our next library newsletter, which goes out for the spring, I have included a letter which covers this topic, directed mainly to parents and caregivers, but it's really kind of an information piece about asking people to understand what today's public library is like and how busy and how, kind of changing a population we have, and that they be aware of that. So that next newsletter will have that. I mean, obviously that goes out to the entire population, but they're,
This is a
hoping parents
very
will read it.
important group that you, and program that you've set up, because I don't think, because this is such a unique library and it was so exciting, and people didn't realize, I don't think anybody realized the input it would have from everyone around and other problems. Well, I don't mean problems as such, but different things that were gonna happen here, and the kids found a neat place to go because they never had any other place. And to
Right.
learn the different parameters within
Right.
which they can operate, so to speak. But
Well, I think a couple of the interesting things that came out of the meetings is we did have one of our meetings here on a Friday afternoon, and so some of the parents who were involved were really amazed at what they saw, and really I know one of them came away saying, I'll never let my fifth grader come alone. I didn't understand that before. Because the kind of the thought is what we remember of an old-fashioned little library, right? I mean,
I still remember
yeah,
going.
walking as a child, I walked as a child to my library all the time.
Yes.
But they were not dealing with the volume that libraries see today. I mean, there's this kind of misconception out there that libraries are quieter than ever. They're not. They're busier than ever with more and more demands. So I think that was a big kind of understanding that came out of that discussion. And I know for me, I needed the insight from parents specifically because, my days of raising a teenager are far past, so I needed to understand that thinking, how realistic was I being? In my mind, I would say, I think I'd wait till they were 7th or 8th grade, but that's not the case, so I really needed some insight from the
It's
parents.
important that you made the emphasis that so many different kinds of people come here. This is not a babysitting place, not that it ever was,
Right.
but there's a great amount of people from different backgrounds, and some doing research, some just not taking a book and reading it, and
Right.
whatever. We accommodate many, many different types of
Right.
situations here.
I think one of the things that we talked about a lot is sending your child unsupervised to the library is more akin to sending your child to the mall or to a movie theater than to sending them to a classroom. In a classroom, there is direct supervision, whatever kind of situation like that, you're having someone who is responsible for that child while they're in that building.
Or some of them are familiar with after-school programs.
Yes, right.
Which are well supervised.
Right,
Because
right.
it's only a certain population that can come,
Right.
And I think they have to understand that we have no control over who comes in or out.
Right.
And middle school children at times can be flip. That's just the nature of who they are, and you don't know the reaction. They're not prepared sometimes for the reaction that comes from the other person.
With a large group. And also, my major concern has been about judgment at that age.
Oh, yeah.
And, when I see large groups of teens coming in and out of the building, I don't know where they're going. I don't know if parents have agreed to that. Obviously, parents have allowed them to walk here, but you don't know that every parent understands they will be leaving to go somewhere else for a while and then come back later and that kind of thing. And
Or
it's a
another
real
teen is
concern.
visiting the library, and this boy or girl seems really cool and really neat, and I have a cell phone, so I'm gonna give them my cell phone number or something like that, and, I'm not saying that it can create trouble, but it can.
Sure.
I don't want to give the impression of quote and unquote buyers beware, so to speak.
Right. And
You
they
showed
don't
them.
understand.
You shudder to think what can happen when two opposing forces in here go outside.
Yeah. Or somebody sends a text, so-and-so's bugging me here, and their friend, which happens in schools
right.
that are well supervised, so, but I think it's just making parents aware that it's not.
Yeah.
This document is a real eye-opener.
Yes.
It was for me, and I applaud who,
Yeah,
It's
I
really,
really
really
appreciate the group helping us
But
out.
Really
if
important.
if we can find a good way to get this information to parents,
Right.
whether it be through the newsletter or some other way,
So we were thinking that it needs a lot of different approaches.
It does.
We're not gonna, what appeared in the newsletter is a very lengthy article, that's not gonna work with parents who are very busy and, really don't have time to read that kind of thing, but little bits of facts coming out, and social media might be the way to get some of that information out there.
Just out of curiosity, how many of them have cell phones? All of
Oh,
them?
I would think
Oh,
predominant,
yeah.
though there have been cases, we had,
Wait a second.
we had a young woman a young girl, she was, I think, a fifth grader, who, it was a Friday night, it was closing, we could not reach her. She did not have her own cell phone. We
She
could
was a
not reach her
minority.
parents. We ended up having, I think it was like 5:30 at night, reaching him at a local gym, and were able to ask the gym staff to go track him down. She didn't know which gym he was at, so we were calling
oh, geez.
a variety of gyms trying to track down the father. And we did track him down, but that was a young child without a phone. So one of the things I say in the letter is that if you're sending your child to the library, they need to know how to reach you. And you need to be clear with them about the parameters you have for their behavior. Can they leave? Can they be talking to adults in another part of the building? That kind of thing.
Would you ever call the police department for a
We
student
we
who's
have
left
called,
here?
in fact, at that incident, as we were getting
Yeah.
close to the end, just before the father arrived, the police came.
Yeah.
Because we were getting ready to call for assistance, because we had no other options on how to contact, and then we figured it out. Someone, I think she mentioned the color of the gym or something, and one of the staff members knew the gym.
Wow.
So,
Did he just forget? Or
Or
the other parent, he thought the other
that
parent.
situation. But the
Sometimes we
police
had that in
officer-
school.
But the police officer actually spoke to him and said, this is not the kind of thing that you
Yeah.
can expect your child at this age to be left alone.
I
This
mean,
program,
we've sometimes had that because the father thought the mother was picking him up.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
But
Signals to
this
cross.
program,
Signals crossed, or
Yeah.
or not being sure of the library hours.
yeah, that's probably, yeah.
this is not to discourage people
No.
from
No.
coming, but,
Just to-
and I don't think we wanna that's not what we're doing,
Right.
but we're just,
I'm glad you brought that up, because this is one of the questions that came up, was we heard from one of the participants that some people who this person had talked to out in the community advised, well, just don't let there be any social kind of behavior at the library for teens. And I said, that's not we really don't want to take that approach. We allow adults to socialize. Men who are sitting in the newspaper room reading their papers or talking about politics and all that kind of. We don't want to say that because you were a teenager you have no ability to socialize and talk with other teenagers. That's not what we want to do. We just want to make sure that the library is safe for our youngest teens. It's really those tweens, that we want to make sure it's safe for them.
Unfortunately, we
parent-
can't guarantee that.
Right, and we need parents to be involved in that.
Well, and I
that's
think
the
that's the importance of this policy, because we can't guarantee it.
Mhm.
So God forbid something does happen, the liability is there. But if we have a policy in place, or parents have been informed, it's a different story.
parental involvement is so important in
Right.
many cases, all
Yeah.
kinds of things, but especially this would help
Mhm.
tremendously to encourage people to enjoy what we have here.
Right.
And I
That's the
think
point.
the nature of middle school teenagers is not to tell their parents the whole story.
Right,
Right.
They know what the parent likes to hear, and that's what they
That's right.
tell them. So,
That's what we heard from one of the educators, that they heard that some of the students, she had asked some high schools, tell us about, going to the library, and what they said was, our parents think it's a safe place, so it's
Yeah.
good. Our parents think it's a place we can go.
right.
Yeah.
And it is a safe place
It
to a degree.
To a degree.
It certainly
But
beats
it's a
them all.
It beats the mom.
It sure does.
But it is a public place.
Yeah. So,
So,
okay, so
so
you'll
I think what I
come
would
back with-
recommend is we come back, we have a chance to all kind of
Sure.
think this through, and then I do want to talk a little bit more with staff about that final recommendation.
yeah, I want to come another Friday. It's busy. I thought it might be this Friday because it was first back, but
It may not be
It
till the
was
spring,
quiet.
because as the
I
cold
was thinking
weather
about that,
starts
yeah.
keeping it down.
I was amazed, I came through the center of town one day when the school was letting out, and to see them running in groups the way that they are. It's like, it was like, oh my gosh, this is,
It's like a herd.
yeah, there's a lot of enthusiasm, but
Yeah.
it's like, clearly they wanted to stake out their places at the library.
They've never had a place to go before,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
this is so exciting for
Yeah.
them.
yeah.
It really is.
Oh, it is.
Yep.
To perform so many services
It
for
does.
this town.
Yeah. Okay, so now, Friends of the Library update?
Okay, just want to let you know that the Foreign Film Festival that takes place every February is scheduled.
Oh, good.
And that takes place at 2 p.m. every Sunday in February. It's free. People can bring their own covered beverages. And actually, I think in this room, they don't need to be covered. And we provide the popcorn. And that is run by Melissa Meisowitz, who's one of our program chairs from the Friends of the Library. It's a huge event.
It's great. It's
Yeah,
terrific.
very well attended. So the films in order are The Wedding Plan from Israel, The Deep from Norway, Baran from Iran, and The Taste of Others from France, all subtitled in English.
It gives a good
Good turnout.
for them all.
Oh, that's
And
great.
Ellen, is a corked bottle of wine a covered beverage?
No, sorry.
Your covered cup.
Cover cup. Right,
Get a
we wouldn't-
swell bottle, you'll be all set. That's great. Okay, so, review and act upon sale.
So this is post-event, as you can see. This actually occurred January 16th. We messed up on the request on this one, so
That's okay.
I'm requesting post-event, the approval on something that already occurred.
That's fine.
Thank you. Also, just wanted to add, Joan, under miscellaneous, that, just a reminder, the library legislative breakfast, which is being held at Worcester Public Library this year, is scheduled for Friday, February 16th at 8 a.m.
Oh,
I'll be going if anyone wants
I
to
could
join.
probably go this year, now that I'm retired. February 16th?
February 16th, it's a Friday morning.
Okay.
There's a program, the 30th here too, isn't there, about Concord?
That's the Historical Society is
Society's
using
using
our
this.
meeting room, and
Yes.
yes, the Road to Concord.
Road to Concord, that looked quite interesting.
Yeah, that does look good. And that's drop-in, there's no registration,
Right.
they can just show up at 6:30 p.m.
I've
forget
got
the
it written
night.
down somewhere.
I don't have it in,
I thought I
since
would-
it's not a
that
library
sounded-
program, it's not a
Might get myself to
newsletter.
go there.
Great. Okay, so now we will go back to a review and act upon
Strategic plan.
planning update. And
So I
think-
just wanted to give you a minute.
I think I need to move.
Yeah, I'm just gonna turn down the light just a little for you so you can see. And then I'll just give you a quick update of where we stand. Is that gonna mess you up? Okay, so as you remember, we started a strategic planning process, actually last spring, by forming the Community Advisory Council. And we had people from a range, how do we get up there? Let me just- Okay. From a range of different sectors of the community to help advise us on selecting service priorities. And so this is just an update on the work of that group as well as the internal work group, the library managers. So this process is called Strategic Planning for Results, and it's based on the idea that you gather data about the community and the library, and then you select priorities or strategic service initiatives that focus on the needs of the community. So it's really community focused. And we are working right now on creating goals and objectives related to the priorities that were selected. So these were the mission and vision statements that you approved at an earlier meeting, basically that create the idea of what we do as a mission and what we aspire to in general as part of the vision statement. I don't think I need to read those, but I'll just leave those up there for a second. So what the stage that we're at now, actually I forgot this. So we also have a set of values that we include in our plan. This was included in our last plan, and our work group has agreed that these are still important to what we do, to express to our staff and to the community our certain values about the service we provide. And the first is that we are focused on customer needs. And as you can see, there's a range of responses that we try to highlight in terms of customer needs. Both a diverse selection of programs and services, encouraging staff to anticipate needs instead of waiting for needs to come to us, and planning for the future and working continually to improve our programs. The second value is that we support access for all, and this is a core library, a professional value, that we support providing information services and collections to all, and that whether that's materials, programs, collections, that we try to represent the divergent views of our community, and that we provide online and services to meet technology needs. We really value the idea that we are community-centered. We're very proud that we consider our part a key part of the community, and here to serve people, and that we encourage cooperation with other people and agencies and so forth. And a major value that we hold is that we respect each other, whether that's library staff respecting each other, respect to library users. We have all different kinds of library users who come into the building. We respect our users, and we also respect the community. That relates to being sure that we use the sources, the funding sources we give to us very respectfully, efficiently, and effectively, and that we treat all people fairly. So one of the major tasks of this strategic plan is to select strategic service priorities that match the needs of the community. And as you can see, we have 5 priorities that we are recommending to you to be our strategic priorities of the next 5 years of the plan. The first 4 are priorities that were used in our last plan. So that's celebrating diversity, cultural awareness, providing programs and collections that promote appreciation and understanding of personal heritage and heritages of others in the community. The second, to stimulate the imagination, is all about collections, building collections, whether that's for reading, viewing, or listening, that enhance people's leisure time, that we have the popular materials people are looking for. The third service priority is a welcoming environment, both physical and virtual spaces. This was kind of a surprise that this came out so highly rated in our Community Advisory Council in our survey. We felt that, well, we have this great new facility, do we have to worry so much about the welcoming place? But it became actually a more core role of the library as being that community center, providing welcome to all. We will be looking at that. We propose to look at that as a strategic initiative in this next plan. And lifelong learning, supporting collections, services, and programs that support lifelong learning for people throughout their lives. And the new service priority is that last one, and this is know your community, providing community resources and services. And this is really about being the one place, the community hub that people can go to when they need to know information about the community, when they need to connect with others in the community. And so that would be kind of a new service initiative. So what I'm hoping is that tonight we could have approval of those service priorities, but what I can do is kind of go into how those service priorities might be reflected into goals and objectives. So I'll give you some examples on the next screens of how they may play out. So under celebrate diversity and cultural awareness, a couple goals, one goal that we put out was offer programs, services, and resources that celebrate our community's diversity. And it might be as specific as an objective, the first one, which is to create 3 culinary-based programs focused on cultural traditions. This is something that we've discovered through like our English Conversation Circle and other programming, that food-based or culinary-based programs really bring people of divergent backgrounds together. So that's one of the things we want to do. And as you can see, there's an emphasis for different age groups. And then we also, under this service priority, hope to encourage staff participation in partnerships with other community groups. We do a lot of that informally through the programming we put out and that kind of thing, but this is actually being more intentional in our participation in other groups, as an example. This one again is related to collections, so this is about building those reading, viewing, and listening collections. So our goal is to improve collections for the public and make it easier for patrons to find items they are seeking. One of the things that we heard through the survey a lot, a real commonality, was people were not satisfied with parts of the collection. We heard a lot about there weren't enough new materials, there weren't enough copies of new titles, not enough new videos, that kind of thing. We also heard about back titles in series, that we weren't maintaining enough back titles of a full series. Our feeling had been all along, we were meeting that need through the library consortium, that you could request them for other areas. But we want to look at both how we provide more new materials and how we provide for a greater backstock. So one of those objectives is to assess the arrangement on the first floor collections to determine any capacity for increased backstock, some
The biggest problem
rearrangements.
is the books that I want are on the bottom shelf.
They're on the bottom shelf. That's not good. And then also related to this whole idea of collections is the improvement of our collection development skills. We have staff in all different departments who work on selecting the materials for the collections, different specialties, but we want to build up the skills of all of our staff so that they're contributing to that task. One goal that's not on here that relates to the funding of materials is that, this has been a big focus of our budget request for a number of years. It will appear again in this plan. These are just samples of some that we have included. We know that, we heard a lot in the surveys that people are unhappy there's not enough new titles when they come in to look at the new books or new whatever, And what we know is that we're still purchasing those materials. It's just the volume of visitors to the building is so big now. They're going through the materials. I know we can put out the new books on the shelf and they'll be gone in a heavy day. They'll be gone practically.
And the next person comes in
And
and says, oh, you
says-
don't have what I want.
Right.
Right.
So, part of it is meeting that high demand and maybe making the process of interlibrary loans simpler for people and that kind of thing. So we have a lot of work to do in that area. Under welcoming and comfortable places, the goal is to make patrons who visit use the library feel it's a place that's pleasant and simple to use and welcoming. So one of the things that came out in the survey is the noise level, concerns about noise levels in the building. And so we put in an objective to assess the noise level norms throughout the building and look at if we need to do further designations of spaces as quiet and kind of moderating those balances if there's something we can do there. And then related to that is virtual spaces, improvements to our website. Under lifelong learning, we had two goals I'm giving you as samples. One is to provide learning opportunities for all ages, children, teen, adults, and seniors. And so under one area, we had an objective to make some changes to children's services. And one of those ways that we wanted to approach this was to create a parent advisory board to advise on children's programs. We had some concerns voiced about children's programming and policies, so that's something we'd like to take up. And then enhance the experience of library visits for children. We heard a lot about the kinds of toys or manipulatives or educational materials that are down for children when they visit the library, what the things they have to use while they're visiting. We're looking at a grant opportunity to make some improvements there, so we are including it in our plan specifically. As you can see, some of these goals are very generic and not too clear at this stage, but we're working those through. Under Know Your Community, since this would be a new service area we're focusing on, the goal would be to become that community information hub for people of Shrewsbury. We know we are kind of that informally in a lot of ways, but this is to take a more formal approach to it. And the first objective would be to create an informational service for community organizations, and you can see ways we would do that. And then we also have the goal of creating a central source for new residents to find information about the town. Again, we're doing a lot of that informally. When a new resident comes into town, they often stop here to find out, where do I go to do this? How do I find out information about this organization or term services or anything like that? So it's just formalizing it a bit more. The next steps of our plan is the completion of those goals and objectives, so we still have a lot of writing to do. Review and approval by this board. That would then go to the Board of Library Commissioners, and then some introductions and promotions out to the community and implementation of the plan for the fiscal year 2020 action plan. We already have a fiscal year 19 action plan in place based on our old long-range plan. I'm proposing that if we can get it done in time, that we would actually go back to the MBLC with a revision to our fiscal year 19 plan. That would, if they approve that, that would open up some grant opportunities now instead of waiting till the next
This is a
fiscal year.
huge thing you've tackled, this is enormous.
It's been very
And-
invigorating,
and
I'll
I
tell
would
you.
say, so many things that you're aiming to do, I don't know how all of them are possible, we're asking for the golden,
Right, a strategic plan is to aspire to what you
right.
hope to be. It's not that you accomplish
Yeah.
everything, and it also is strategic in nature in that it does not say in year one, we will do this and we will do, so many programs. That comes out in the action plan we do each year. The idea is to be able to respond to changes in the environment, to changes in funding, to changes in any kind of conditions that would want us.
it's a huge
Yeah.
project that
So-
it's nice to aim for.
Thank you. So I just have a copy of the draft if anyone wants to see that, to get a little bit more information on some of the goals and objectives we're working on, since I only gave you samples. But what I
That was
would
actually
hope,
in our materials, right?
Yeah,
I did put it in the
Yes.
materials,
Yeah.
oh, I
Yeah.
forgot that.
yeah.
Yeah,
What I was hoping I could get is an approval of the strategic service priorities tonight.
Sure.
I move we approve the service priorities.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Well, thank you for that support, and I also want to take a moment to thank the advisory council who worked with us. We had about 20 people who were on that committee. Actually, it was more like 25, but it was people from all across the community. It was just
Great. How do I
really
turn-
wonderful to hear the
How do I
enthusiasm.
turn the lights on?
Just press the very top button,
Here?
and the black, yep, on the left,
This?
yep, that will do it.
And all their names were in the report that you sent.
That's
us.
right, they
Yeah.
were in the report, yep.
Quite a bit of work.
You've already seen it, Dean, but they've already seen it
Oh,
on the back,
they
so I
have,
think.
Yeah, it's in the
I
Google
forgot that I
Docs,
had-
the
Yeah.
entire thing, so
Forgot
that's
that I
great, thanks,
did.
I
Ellen.
haven't looked at it yet, but I saw that it was there. I'm not relying on my
Well, there were
computer.
22 pages, so we
I'm
just.
not relying on my computer anymore.
Oh, the sad story there.
Well, one time it didn't come up, so I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
use the paper still. Okay. So
old reliable paper.
at this point, I would like to move to executive session.
Could I get a vote on the
Oh, I'm
service
sorry.
priorities?
Yes,
Sorry, I
yes.
just
Oh,
want to
did
make
we
sure.
do-
Did we do it?
We did,
Yeah, we did, we
Oh, we
did.
did, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
We
Yeah.
loved it.
Okay, so at this time, we're
Okay.
going to move to executive session for the purpose of considering the development of a security personnel or devices. We will not return back to public session when we finish this, but in order to go into an executive session, we need a roll call vote. So Ellen, no,
No, I
That's
don't
it.
get to vote.
no.
Dean.
Fran,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Claire,
Yes.
Kevin,
Yes.
and myself, yes. So at this point, we'll adjourn to executive session, not to return to public session.